Good morning. The Committee on Regulatory Reform will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Carter,
Present.
Representatives Liberati,
Here.
Neely,
Here.
Scott,
Present.
Young,
Here.
Grant, McFall,
Here.
Snyder,
Here.
Wilson,
Here.
Mueller,
Here.
Filler,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Here.
Aragona,
Here.
Beerline,
Here.
Nyer.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Liberati moves to adopt the minutes from the May 23rd, 2023 meeting. Seeing no objections, the minutes are adopted. Today, we'll be referring House Bill 4608 to Health Policy Committee, voting on Senate Bill 141 and House Bill 4561, which we heard testimony on at our last meeting, and we'll be taking additional testimony on House Bills 4526, 4527, and 4528. With that, I need a motion to refer House Bill 4608 to Health Policy. Have that from Rep. McFall. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Carter,
Yes.
Representatives Liberati,
Yes.
Neely,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Grant, McFall,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Filler,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Yes.
Aragona,
Yes.
Beerline,
Yes.
Nyer.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 14 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes. House Bill 4608 is referred to the Health Policy Committee.
Thank you. Next, we'll take up House Bill 4561, sponsored by Representative Liberati. We need a motion to refer House Bill 4561 with recommendation. Representative Snyder makes the motion. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Chair Carter,
Yes.
Representatives Liberati,
Yes.
Neely,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Grant, McFall,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Filler,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Yes.
Aragona,
Yes.
Beerline,
Yes.
Nyer.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 14 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes. House Bill 4561 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you. We'll now go at ease. Right. We are back on. We do have one card that does not wish to speak but is in support of the bill. Leah Robinson, Michigan Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Thank you. Got it. Next, we'll report out Senate Bill 141, sponsored by Senator McMorrow. We need a motion to report Senate Bill 141 with recommendation. Rep. Mueller makes the motion. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Carter,
Yes.
Representatives Liberati,
Yes.
Neely,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Grant, McFall,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Filler,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Yes.
Aragona,
Yes.
Beerline,
Yes.
Nyer.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 14 yeas, 0 nays, 0 passes. Senate Bill 141 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The committee will now go at ease. All right, we are now back on the record. Thank you. We will now hear from the Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy on the changes in the aggregate bills, specifically H1 sub for House Bill 4528.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, for those who don't remember, Travis Boskel, I'm a Deputy Director with the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. And you might have remembered Adam Wygant was sitting here next to me 4 weeks ago. He is on a plane right now, so you just have me, so I'll do my best here. I'm going to provide, it's a list here, so I'm going to go bullet by bullet. It'll be a little bit, but these are the list of changes that were made at the request of Eagle in these bills. And I'll start by saying at this point, still no position from the administration on them, but just want to make sure members of the committee are aware of the changes that are in front of you in that H1 sub here. All right, running down the list here. So the first thing is existing operating mines cannot apply for 3 years after the effective date of the act. So that's to address that possibility that we could get a glut of existing mines applying for regulation under state permit and completely overwhelm what's going to be a very small team in the early years of this program. Next, there are provisions added that if the environmental impact assessment that's already required in the legislation identifies expected impacts to groundwater elevation, then we have the ability to require groundwater monitoring before, during, and after mining occurs. We also have provisions now that allow a special section for local governments to request permit conditions during the permit review and application process, as well as once a permit is already in effect, there are provisions that allow a local government to propose amendments to an operating permit. We thought that was important if we identify certain conditions that need to be addressed down the line. It creates that dialogue that's needed for us to review and amend that permit. The bill now allows the surveillance fee, so that's the fee that comes to Eagle for running the regulatory program. It allows that surveillance fee to double from 5 cents a ton to 10 cents a ton if it's necessary to support the program. And we have 5 years until that kicks in. Now I'll just remind everybody that as the bill's written, it requires us to do a calculation, and the fee is the lesser of what it costs to run the program, and that 5 cents a ton or eventually 10 cents a ton. So there's still some pretty robust requirements in terms of how much it actually costs to run that program. The language that penalized complainants for 2 unsubstantiated complaints to the department by making them liable for the department's cost of investigating the complaints, that's been removed from the bill. That was something that didn't really have an analogous language in any other statute that I was aware of. There was language in the bill that set standards for noise at these sites. And so that was an 8-hour time-weighted average, which we felt was excessively long and would also make compliance really, really difficult to assess, right? So if we get a complaint that a mining operation was too loud, it was above the standards listed in the bill, we'd have to go out there, set up specialized monitoring equipment, and have staff sit there for 8 hours and measure those to determine that compliance. And so that's reduced down to an hour time-weighted average. There's also, and this is probably a partial addressing of a department request. So y'all remember that the bill talks about that if the hauling operations need to use a non-Class A road, that the department may request that the operator work with the County Road Commission. That has now been turned to a shall request that they work together. We had also had a comment that we thought maybe a little bit more local input into that process might help minimize conflicts, nuisances, that kind of thing. That part was not addressed, so it's just the may to a shall there. We requested that when we're reviewing the permit after we've determined it to be administratively complete, that it's transmitted to the local unit of government by us within 14 days. So the local unit of government will get it a little earlier than the general public and prior to public noticing. The bill removes some of the provisions related to blasting. As far as we can tell, there's not blasting at sand and gravel operations. There's other experts here who actually mine sand and gravel, but it seems like provisions that were in there without really much of a need for it. And the last one I'll mention here. So reduces the time period to begin mining. So the bill said you have to start mining or constructing plant facilities within 10 years of a permit being issued. That's a long time. I mean, so we reduced that down to 5 years, although there are provisions for 1-year extensions if there's cause, like judicial challenges, administrative challenges, that kind of thing, preventing things from occurring. From there on out, I would say many of the items are what I'd put as clarification. So I have that full list if we want to dive into that. There are a couple things that we requested that weren't addressed, so I'll list those out for you as well. So we requested that truck staging not be allowed to begin until the hours of operation listed in the bill. We know that that's a nuisance issue, and that's going to result in phone calls to us. And so that was not addressed. We also requested that maintenance activities, that regular maintenance activities should fall under the business hours in the bill, but as of right now, the bill still says that maintenance is not subject to the business hours listed in the bill. I already mentioned the local government input into haul routes, and then there's language that states that this is not a public nuisance. There's been concerns raised to me by the governor's legal office about that limiting nuisance litigation, and at this point that has not been addressed as well. There were 2 changes that I see that were not requested by Eagle, so I don't have a ton of insight necessarily into those. So one is removing some of the crushing operations language in the bill, and then the other is breaking the tie bar from the other 2 bills in the package. So with that, that's what I know.
Thank you for your, thanks for being here, and thank you for your overview. Do we have any questions from members? I see a couple. Representative Filler.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for your testimony. I guess I'm doing my review right now, but I would assume that the changes, in your opinion, make the bill, I don't know, more focused on sand and gravel and not mining, more protective of the environment, and create a more collaborative process. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thanks for your work then.
Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You stated you didn't have a position on the bill yet, and then you went through some of the things that were not in the bill that I assume that you would like in there, like the truck staging, business hours, and that type of thing. If those things were added in, would that get you from no position to somewhat of a position?
It's a good question, a fair question. Ultimately, I think the biggest reason that we're not taking a formal position or making the recommendation is this removal preemption of local control, right? So outside a decision being settled on that, I think that's where the no position comes from. And, frankly, every conversation I have on this is with the governor's office. So I'd have to have a discussion there as well.
Okay, thank you. And how long has this issue been going on?
In terms of how long I've personally worked on it since...
just in general. Hasn't this been going on since the 70s or 80s?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't alive then. I've been working on it. I'm sorry. I've been working on it for...
I was like 4, so it's no big deal.
I've been working on it for 4.5 years myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Bierland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask 2 questions? Thank you. One thing that says the local unit of government may submit some guidelines, but you don't have to accept them. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood. And then the other one that I had has to do with the 3-year waiting period. Mm-hmm. I know we're hearing a lot that this, there are a lot of cost things that are happening because we're not mining close to road projects. How does this help that situation if we have to wait 3 years?
So just to be clear, the 3 years is on a currently operating mine. So new mines can come in, but our concern was the potential for currently operating mines who might be unhappy with the arrangement that they have with local units of government saying, oh man, that state program looks great, and then we get 100 applications and we have 2 people to review them. So this gives us a chance to start to build and staff up that program.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we need a motion to adopt the H1 substitute for House Bill 4528. Representative Wilson, we'll take it back. Representative Filler makes that motion. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Chair Carter?
Yes.
Representatives Liberati?
Yes.
Neely?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Young?
Pass.
Grant?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
McFall?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Mueller?
Pass.
Filler?
Yes.
Wenzel?
Yes.
Aragona?
Yes.
Beerline?
Pass.
Nair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas, 0 nays, 3 passes. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, we have some cards wishing to speak. I'm looking to see if there's anyone who has spoken before, because the clerk has downloaded all of that testimony to the website. So with that, call your name if you still want to speak. We'll have 3 minutes. So, Dr. Wanda Isa, Ingham County Citizens. Do me a favor, have a seat and hit the red button so we can hear you and record you.
I'm Dr. Wanda Isa, family physician. Also, I have a past of being an ecologist for the Forest Service, land management, land planning, and I have done research on strip mine recovery and reclamation. And I just want to remind people that strip mining is not restorable land. You don't restore it. It is not going to grow back to the previous vegetation. So it's basically a destructive land use. And you are, you're asking the state, well, this issue, and I'm not a politician, but I think that it should be in local control, because I've looked at the bill. I've noticed that it hasn't looked at good public health standards. Everything, to me, should be a public health standard. Any industry should conform to keeping our public healthy. And putting an industry side to side with residents. We don't live in Iowa where there's 5,000 acres between people living. This industry would be next to residents. I live in this area in southeast Ingham County, where I live on a street, there's 6 babies, but however, it's all thousands of acres of cash crop farming. And residents would be affected in Ingham County and other counties of Michigan. So it's a public health issue. People live near industry. And I don't see that 70 to 90 decibels, do you think that's safe? Whether it's on an hourly basis or 8-hour weighted average, that is not safe. If you talk to our PhD person at MSU who's in charge of audiology, under 45 decibels A is safety for health, public health. So this bill needs to be rewritten and looked at from a public health point of view, from my point of view, and it hasn't. So I would encourage that it be rewritten, and if the state cannot worry about public health issues of industrial zoning, then let it at least go back to the local government, where we can talk to doctors, engineers that live locally, and say, gee, we don't want to live near 90 decibels of sound. That's just unrealistic. And I think by reading this bill, I kind of wonder if the committee even looked at any kind of expertise on this level. Did you talk to an audiologist? Did you talk to an acoustic engineer at all when this bill was written? And I think that we need to go by science. We need to go by research. What is safe? What can you allow people to live by? Industry is not always safe.
Thank you. Next, wishing to speak and opposes the bill is Jacqueline Sproles. Ms. Sproles? Next, wishing to speak but opposes the bill as well, Barbara Cullum.
My name's Barb Cullum. I live in rural Ingham County on a working farm. I agree with what Dr. Wanda Isa has said. Local zoning is important and vital to our communities. It is my understanding that these proposed bills will not be subject to a referendum. If this is true, why? Are you not elected to represent your constituents? Why would you pass a bill that limits the will of the people of Michigan? Are you concerned at all how poorly these bills are written in regards to the safety of the citizens in this state? Those are questions that need to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Wishing to speak in support, Mike Alamo, Michigan Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning. Just give me 1 second here. Members of the House Regulatory Reform Committee, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Michael Limo. I'm the Director of Environmental and Energy Affairs for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you in support of House Bills 4526 through 28, bills that would amend and streamline the permitting process for sand and gravel mining by putting a robust and deliberative permit process in the hands of state regulators at Eagle. The decision by our coalition to support the state administering this program does not come lightly. More often than not, industry is hesitant to support initiatives that result in greater regulation and oversight. However, in this case, we support this reform because of the immense challenges the current system has on our ability to access critical aggregate material to build our roads. Unfortunately, opposition at the local level is by and large preventing the permitting of new sand and gravel operations throughout the state. And this is very often not due to any significant or relevant concerns to the community, but rather a decision that they simply don't want these operations in their backyard. Ultimately, we want the regulation of sand and gravel operations in this state to lead to greater market certainty for mining operators who are making long-term investments in our state's communities. These bills do that. We want better environmental protections and consideration given to our statewide natural resources. These bills do that. And we want to make sure that the permit decisions are based on the state's needs and permit denials are not done so arbitrarily. These bills do that. This legislature has focused a great deal on jobs and infrastructure, rebuilding our aging and crumbling infrastructure and making the state a place where we encourage population growth and business attraction requires a number of things. It requires a skilled and experienced workforce, which is why we are happy to announce that Teamsters Joint Council 43 and the Michigan Laborers are supporting and scorecarding these bills. It also means reducing regulatory barriers that help boost our economy. And in this case, it means having access to the raw materials for our infrastructure as close as possible to where they are needed. During this time of historically high inflation, the construction industry has been particularly affected by rising costs, from supply chain shortages to high gas prices. Michigan taxpayers shoulder the burden of these increased costs, and these bills help ensure that the money we spend on our roads and bridges is spent responsibly and more efficiently. There has been a great deal of misinformation regarding this legislation. The Michigan Chamber strongly supports these bills being voted out of committee because it saves hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars and supports fixing our aging roads and bridges. It protects our environment and natural resources. It supports jobs in a skilled workforce, and it improves and protects local quality of life by enhancing industry operational requirements around things like noise control, hours of operation, remediation, and reclamation of exhausted mining sites so that they can be repurposed. So with that, appreciate your consideration of these bills and happy to take any questions.
Thank you for being at 3 minutes. Next, we have Ross. You're the one who supports the bill from Top Grade Aggregate.
Yep. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. Again, my name is Ross Valtema. I'm from Top Grade Aggregate. I started the company right after high school back in 2004. We got into aggregates. We were excavating first. We got into aggregates in 2006. We have a large farm, the ownership group. I have a partner in my group that owns a large farm in Kalamazoo, Michigan, 2,000 acres. The entire farm is gravel. Back in the beginning, when we weren't experienced gravel company, we had a bigger gravel company come in and try to permit 600 acres of it. They spent a lot of money and later pulled away from it based on the economy in 2008 and the heavy resistance that they incurred. After that experience of ours, we decided that we were a smaller local company. We would go back into the township and have a different approach. So we did that. We went back in and made some concessions. We took it from a 600 acre to a 30 acre site, go really, really small. We received the same amount of resistance going to 30 acres, so we then went back to the drawing table again and said, look, in order to make this feasible, we need to go back to 500 acres. So that is what we did. Since then, same thing. We came up with all the data. We went through with Eagle. We did all our homework. Basically, the site is a perfect site for this. It is on M89. It is a Class A MDOT road. There's hardly any neighbors. We own 11 of the homes on the farm already. The original plan was to develop the site. We took that off the table. Today, it is a farm site. We told the township we would return it to farm. Our partnership group are farmers, so we would be farming it at the end. There were some major advantages to doing that because we were going to bring the entire farm closer to the water table to alleviate irrigation. So with all that being said, we've continued to get steep resistance. The site has had mining on it in the past, but the mining was only meant for the farm. We were told that you can mine all you want as long as you don't sell it. And we found that quite ironic because they would tell us that mining was bad if we were selling and trucking, but mining was fine as long as we were using it on site. So some of the experience we went through, I have other sites in the community. Right now, the main issues we're having is just the amount of trucks it takes to get the product to market. If we have more localized sites, the trucking would go down by far. Right now, we're traveling through several communities to get our aggregate from A to B. So we feel like the trucking has increased because of the permit challenges. So we are in major favor to make this easier. We think that each township has been different in their approach to mining permits in the past, and we think that our site has a very good viable future with aggregate, and we also think that there is no negative impacts. We've done our research, and we would like to we look forward to working with Eagle.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, wishing to speak in support is Lee Graham from Operating Engineers, 324.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Thank you to the Regulatory Committee. Good morning. My name is Lee Graham. I am the Executive Director for the Operating Engineers Labor Management Education Committee. For those of you who don't know, we are the organization representing almost 15,000 heavy equipment operators, among others, around the entire state of Michigan from Marquette to Monroe. That means our members are the ones repairing and rebuilding the roads and bridges throughout the state. That also means it's often our members who work in the quarries, extracting, moving, and processing the aggregate that makes the infrastructure projects possible. I am here today because the operating engineers believe the reforms contained in House Bills 4526 and 4527 and 4528 are important to the future of the Michigan jobs and infrastructure. To us at the operating engineers, the issue is jobs at hand. The thousands of hardworking Michigan residents who work in these quarries and the tens and thousands of workers who rely on the aggregate produced to complete the work on the highways and the byways of our state, and the millions of residents who drive these roads daily to get to their jobs. Every single mile of road being laid, rebuilt, repaired, surfaced, paved, and restored relies on having aggregate to be completed. That means not only 10,000s of members are reliant on it, but also that means tens of thousands of laborers, ironworkers, carpenters, truck drivers, and many urban and rural Lower and Upper Peninsula. Without expanded aggregate, we risk losing another generation of professional tradespeople because we cannot logistically and financially put them to work. Given the state of our infrastructure needs, this would be catastrophic to our future. The expansion of the aggregate mining is a workforce development issue and one of the most pressing ones that we have. And in closing, we all agree our roads are in desperate need. Others have presented the numbers, and those numbers are stark and irrefutable. The fewer quarries we have, the more expensive and limited our aggregate is, and the less we can accomplish for our money. That means fewer workers, fewer apprentices, and worst of all, fewer roads. We need solutions that allow us to get more roads built and to keep the costs lower. Jobs are depending on it, and our residents are demanding it. That is why we're asking for your support for Bills 4526, 4527, and 4528. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have wishing to speak in support of the bill is Mark Schlegel. How bad did I cut that up? That was good. Okay. From Schlegel Sand and Gravel.
Yes, Mark Schlegel from Schlegel Sand and Gravel, and also representing the Michigan Aggregate Association as the chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to give you my own personal experience with being denied. My family owns a piece of property in DeWitt Township. We've owned it for 27 years. 2 times I have went before DeWitt Township and attempted to get a mining permit from that site. The last was in July of 2020. In both times, the township attorney signed off on everything. Our application was correct, complete, and he was completely satisfied with what we were proposing. Same with the township planner. And then to make sure it was administratively correct, and then it goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission passed it 6 out of 7 votes for passing our mining plan. And it went to the township trustees and unanimously denied it, and that was the end. They didn't send it back to the Planning Commission for discussion or anything else. They simply just ended it. In my experience, it's been much easier to tell one person no than a whole room full of people no. And so I just, I think that it's needed to take the emotion out of it. These permits need to be looked at with facts, not being looked at as, the neighbor that that they feel that they're letting down, or their friend that's in the room that they have a hard time, saying no to them. It's much easier to say no to one person rather than a whole group. So that's been my experience. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, wishing to speak in opposition of the bill is Dr. from Ingham County Citizens. Was that you? That's twice? You got your 2. So, next we have wishing to speak in support of the bill, Marcus Trammell, Michigan Laborers Union.
Chairman Carter and the House Regulatory Committee for allowing me to discuss this.
Hit the red button for us. Hit the red button.
I apologize. I want to thank Chairman Carter and the House Regulatory Committee for allowing me to discuss this proposed legislation to streamline the process for permitting aggregate extraction. I'm Marcus Trammell. I'm the Research Director for the Michigan Laborers, which includes 7 local unions that represent all 83 counties here in Michigan. The Michigan Laborers District Council and its 13,000 union construction laborers we represent support this innovative solution to the aggregate permitting issue we are discussing today. And we encourage you to do the same. Our members are proud to be on the front lines of rebuilding our infrastructure, our legacy, and the coming decades will be constructed, long-lasting infrastructure rebuilt by Michigan workers. The state of Michigan is spending more fixing our roads than probably any time in history right now. And we all know the condition of our roads and bridges in the state, that it's going to take every dollar to do this job well. And we can't afford to waste this historic opportunity. And that's why we're backing this legislation. By allowing more aggregate mining closer to construction zones, we can reduce the cost of hauling sand and gravel to these job sites. Those savings mean more dollars go into the road building and put more of our constituents to work in this process. We also support moving aggregate permitting to Eagle because it will treat sand and gravel the same as other similar permitting processes while still including local input and ensuring that our environment will be protected by the department and its expertise. So the Michigan laborers believe that House Bills 4526, 4527, and 4528 is a positive step to ensuring that our tax dollars are invested wisely, and so our citizens get the most out of this process for road funding. So we stand with the bill sponsor of this package, and again, we encourage you to join us. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the committee, and if you have any questions, happy to answer.
No questions? Thank you, sir. Next, I'll read the cards in from people not wishing to speak. Not wishing to speak but opposes the bills are Nick Acapenti, Michigan League of Conservation Voters. Not wishing to speak but opposes the bill, Barbara Conley, resident of Lenawee County. Not wishing to speak opposes the bill, Benjamin Martin. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill is Joanne Galloway. Not wishing to speak but opposes the bill, Christine SCHLITT and Paula Bowman from the League of Women Voters of Michigan. Liz Keel, no, not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Liz Keel, Executive Director of FLOW. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Caroline Leitner, Michigan Manufacturers Association. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Dan Backlama, Backlama Excavating Incorporated. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Henry Backlama from Peterman Concrete Company. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Danielle Durgy, Azo Services Management, Inc. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Brett Stanton, Asphalt Pavement Association of Michigan, APAM. Not wishing to speak opposes the bill, Patty Robinson. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Amanda Shelton. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Megan Swain. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Madeline Fatah, Michigan Association of Counties. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Becca Minnick, National Wildlife Federation. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Christy M. McGillery, Sierra Club. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Sean McBarthy, Clean Water Action. Not wishing to speak opposing the bill, Andrea Brown, Michigan Association of Planners. Is that all the cards we have? Okay. Want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your input. All of the written testimony will be uploaded to the committee website, including the 120 emails we received while sitting here. 223. Are we up to 223? All right. With that, seeing no absent members and there being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.